coming up on today's show, Star Destroyer. Obviously we'll be looking at exactly how we're getting on with that one. 50 Shades of Grey springs to mind, certainly with all the airbrushing work we'll be doing this week. We got the next two parts of the Red Arrows bit. We're a little bit short on footage, to be honest. I haven't got any reviews this week. So we're going to do two parts of the Red Arrows build. Will be live on the show. Dave's update. Dave's back. He's had a bit of an injury with his neck and his back over the last few months, so he's had a bit of a break, but he's back with a bang. We've got a short update from him all the way from Canada. Support vehicle SIG finished a couple of weeks ago, so we've got the final reveal for that at the end of the show. Hello, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Flory. Strange angle, as you know. You guys who have been watching this particular one will know I've moved the camera angles around a little bit, and when you see the Red Arrows build, you'll see it as well a little bit later on in the show. We've done it from this angle because now we've got these big spray booths opposite, and I've got the one you can just about see over my shoulder behind. The idea to it really is that I can get all the cameras in to see it, because purely the size of this thing, I can't get it in the spray booth and show you at the same time. It's far too big, and also the point of view of trying to hold it is a bit of a no-no. It weighs too much, it's too clumsy, and everything else like that. So what I've done basically, as we can see, you do the plating down here, but where you'll be to is up here. So we've worked our way through our sort of 50 Shades of Grey with this one, and we've gone through putting down the black. Obviously, you know, we had that down packed before, so finishing off the black and then talking about exactly how we go through the painting work with this one. And as I said, it's one of those things, it's lots of little subtle changes. It's a scale effect. We spoke about it at length when we did the Iwo Jima, when we did the carrier. We wanted it to be so finely fragmented, all the paintwork to be different tones, textures, colours even, everything else like that. So your eye is drawn along it instead of looking at it. Okay, and this is what my belief is with scale effect. If you've got it down packed to a point where, you know, you've got it so it just looks like it's real, okay, what you've actually managed to do is fragment the paintwork up into individual little components. Now the thing with that is, what you're actually doing is taking the viewer's eye on something like this, for instance. Instead of it looking like a grey brick, all of a sudden you've got different tones, textures, so your eye is being drawn to sort of this mottly stuff we've got going up on the surface. And certainly when we come to the underside down here, this is just one colour. It's going to have probably 3 colours of plating down here. They're all going to be lighter. This is the darkest colour on first. We're going to work our way lighter, and overcoat where it's required. But again, you're looking at these metal plates, as it looks like, all over the bottom here, so it breaks it up, so I'm stopping it looking like a brick, okay? And that is, I think, the secret to all scale effects. It's having that ability to, instead of looking at an object, so you've got a pot of paint, you look at a pot of paint, but automatically you see the logo, you see its number, perhaps the fire warning sign, something else like on it, the white of the cap, the glass. It's all of those things sort of interest you, and really that's what marketing does. Any packaging you have on anything will have something glossy, you know, even down to our bottles of wash. We have a nice big bold label on it, things like that. And obviously you can see the colour of the wash through it. It was all designed so to give you something to look at. Exactly the same thing works with your model, okay? And this is where I think scale effect comes into its own versus other things such as your die casts of this world. Now don't get me wrong, die casts, when they're resprayed and done, but because it is block colours normally, okay, and mahogany models, things like that, it literally looks like a solid lump. It doesn't look like it's fragile. It doesn't look like it's working. It looks what it is of being a display model. So to make your eye look all over it, all of a sudden your mind interprets it as being obviously something very complex, something very technical, and probably very, very real. And really that's what you're trying to do. So, you know, we spoke about it at length going through here about how to break up this paintwork, and I've got a small clip for you in a moment. But basically, by using the black underneath and building up thin coats of paint, we can go right the way through. And this is what it sounds like in the raw format. that gives you an idea. We're going through paint there, you know, it's just a 2-minute clip and I'd already gone through one of these, okay? You know, so it doesn't take long and you're not covering it like you are using neat paint. So if you used to be using a 50-50 mix of your Tamiya, for instance, because we're tending to use all Tamiya paints on this, really you're going to just cover it quite easily, okay? Thin it down again, thin it by another 50% again, so you're 2/3 thin as 1/3 paint. I'm putting that down. What it does, it gives you that ability to mottle it up, to change the texture, to change the actual feel of the paintwork. This is actually pretty smooth. When you think we're just chucking this on, okay, and it was quite dusty in here when we were spraying, purely because the amount of paint we were chucking through it, it gives you still a very smooth texture because it melts in, it eats in, it absorbs into the bottom coat. And to be honest, although we've done some bleaching work on this now, you can probably see we've still got blackness in amongst all of these panel lines, and that's what we're trying to do with this. Again, it's to draw your eye, it's to make you look at all of these details. So we've got to do a couple of things left with this. We've still got to do the paneling work. As I said, I'm working through the first colour at the moment on the underside, got to do the top side. There's going to be 2 more colours. I'm going to lighten them up twice by just adding white to them, and then we're going to overlap the panels as well. And if I find that some are too strong, perhaps we'll mute them down, take them down a touch. As soon as that's on, it's then going to have a lacquer coat right the way over it to seal it down, to lock all that paintwork in. Then it's going to have a wash. Okay, we're going to use an ink wash down for all the real digi bits and the technical bits and everything else, and then it's going to have a full clay wash right the way over it. Probably going to be a mix of concrete and dark dirt together just to give it a little bit more on edge. Okay, so that'll go right the way over it, which will work into these panel lines and hopefully accentuate them and everything else. But with the mottling and all those bits, we'd be good to go. When it has the ink wash in all the details, that should make them all pop, okay, and stand out and look really, really well. So when we come along as the next phase, and we're going to come along with our Dremel and drill about 1 million holes in this, okay, to let all of that light out, it should look all in scale and everything else. As soon as that's done, then we can go back to the really working on it. We can then start thinking about getting it onto its stem, detailing up some areas as separates, because there's some areas I want to super detail, but we can do it, as we spoke about in this particular part of the video, in sections. So if we wanted to take a small section, perhaps one of these down in here, to super detail it, we can do it, then respray in that area afterwards just to touch it in and everything else and make it look like it's all part of the same thing. But it's coming together now, really, really enjoying it. We've had no problems with it. It's nice to be using Tamiya paint again and everything else. But as I said, part 8 is up on the site now. It gets you almost to this. I think it gets you all the way until we get to the plating, okay? So then obviously I'm filming the plating as of today and tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. Then it should be done and out of the way, so the paintwork and everything else will be completed on this. But needless to say, I have spent, to be honest, to the time of filming of this, which is now coming up for midday, I've been down here since 9 o'clock, so I've basically spent 3 hours and I've only done that. It's just working out exactly where you're going to have all these panels, where they're going to be, the shapes, the geometry of it. Are you going to have them in a mirror? Now these plates are not mirrored, they're not just a carbon copy and it's flipped, okay? They are completely different, so you've got lumps and bumps that are different on these than they are elsewhere actually on the model. But it's coming together now, really, really enjoying it. If you're on my Facebook page, you would have seen me this week. I posted loads of photos up with it and everything else, and we spoke about it on there. But it's really, really looking nice now, coming together. The light is definitely at the end of the tunnel, or it will be when I put all the holes in it and it's all lit up again. But occasionally I do plug it in because I'm paranoid about it suddenly not going to work. But again, it's nice to be able to pick it up, chuck it over, throw it on its back. It's nice, it's solid and everything else. So good over that one. So anyway, next up we've got over here, we have painted all of the red arrows. Now Spain gloss red and everything else like that is a particular nightmare of mine. So what we're going to do now is, originally I was going to break it up, but as I say, we've got a bit of a short show this week. So what we're going to do is do it in 2 parts. So first up, we've got about painting the red. Okay, so cockpit's all on, sealed down and everything. To be honest, we've had one pop off on us, so I've had to redo it. That's your only trouble. Remember, if you're using thinned glue, PVA glue, it doesn't have quite the grip, shall we say, of normal thick PVA glue or anything else. Because what can happen is it's such a thin seal, works perfectly, don't get me wrong. Trouble with it is though, it's not as strong as you might think. Obviously, we're sort of masking these up and everything else, and it's popped off. Now, very different ones down here. You might be able to see this one here's got a one-piece top, two-piece, everything else. I'm just going to show you what I think is the quickest way to mask up this type of canopy. Obviously, different canopies I do it different ways, but certainly from my point of view, what I tend to use is 6mm Tamiya tape. I only ever mask up using Tamiya tape because I find it's the only one that you don't get any bleed, and also it's not quite as nasty as other things. Okay, so when you're coming in, what I tend to do is I'll break it up into two. Obviously, we've got the front one and the rear one. I try and do it as simply as possible, okay? And a way of doing that is crimping and folding, all right? So what we do, we're just going to put this one on, and it goes well past what you want, and you might be able to see, or hopefully you can see the curve of the actual area down there. So what we're going to do is slightly stretch it, so we pull it a little bit, put your nail in the corner, and then pull across. Now the idea is you get the raised tape at the top here, okay? You can fold that back down, come up to the next one, and then say nice nail in there just like that, and you can pull across, and again it folds in, and that way we've got corners, and you can stretch Tamiya tape around, and you can get some very nice fine details with it. Okay, so then just make sure you come up to exactly where you want it. We pop it in and do it this way. Now actually cutting this, ideally you want a very small little blade, and you can get there and doing it. I'm a bit candid, I tend to use a fresh razor blade when I'm doing these types of things, but all I tend to do is we'll just lay it in. I can see where it is, okay, just come along with your blade and cut it. I always start in the middle and go to the edges, that way you don't end up dragging it. Okay, and then around and just scoop it around like that. Okay, and that's off and gives us our edge on that side. So we've got to do the same on the other one. So we're just going to start in the middle area-ish. Just take your time with it. Okay, but the reason for doing it in the middle like this is so you get a smoother cut on the ends. It's not so bad here because we're going to have them up anyway, but there we go, that's that one done. Nudge that one back in, lift it a little bit. Okay, so that's that one on. Then we can do the middle, so we're just going to use the same bit of tape. We'll have to trim it up just a fraction. So again, stretching and pulling as you go round. Got these scissors, which are, to be honest, decoupage scissors or decoupage scissors, depending where you are in the world. They're absolutely great. They're razor sharp, and they're great for cutting tape, decals, anything else like that. Okay. And that is our front one on, taken care of. Rear one's pretty straightforward. Again, what I tend to do is have a look at the clear part. Now, if it's got very softly molded, or perhaps there isn't any mold lines at all running around the outside to give you a difference between what is the metal part and the glass part, then what I tend to do is I'll use tape and run it around the outside so I've got a nice area. But same thing again, we're just popping this one in, fitting it down, pulling and stretching as we go, so you get a nice rounded edge to it. Again, it's a little bit tricky, this one, because there isn't a great deal to see. Okay, but down, following that one down. Keep that bit handy, as you'll see in a moment. You'll need the little bits. Okay, this one on this side is very softly molded, so you can, if you're using a blade like this, you can use the length of it to sort of track down. Okay, that's that one on. Then we're going to do the same for the rear. Okay. So just pushing down. So we're just going to do exactly the same for the rear. Push this one down, crimp it in a little bit, stretching it over and curling down. Okay, and then just make sure your folds are upwards. So also you get your folds up so they go in. That one down. Again, nice blade edge. So keep the larger bits of the two. That one's gone slightly wonky. Doesn't matter too much because we can clean up with the second tape if you're in that position. So that's those two on. Then using some 10mm, that's too much. What you can do, just lay this one on here, nice and clean at the edge, to the front, push down, roll over, you want the front part, to the rear, line them all up, push down, and that's where you keep your bits left over at the top. You need those just for these parts here. And there we go, all done. And to be honest, I find that quicker to do it that way than I certainly do when I'm doing it with mask sets. I die cut ones. By the time I've managed to get it out and not stretch it and put them down, it's quicker to do it that way. And to be honest, this is a lot harder than doing it our standard way when it's a loose fit and we mask it up before we attach it or put anything down. It's a lot easier because you can actually hold it up to the light, see where you're cutting around it, make sure it's all perfect, and it is far easier to work with. But these ones, because obviously we needed to make sure they're okay before they were stuck down and everything else. So with that bit on, what we can do, clear some space. What we can do now is do prep work for the inside, which is very simple. Twofold reason for doing this. Just going to take flat black. My new favourite colour for this is the rubber black from Tamiya XF85. Love this stuff. Okay, so we're just going to spray it neat, as in not thin, straight out the colour cup. So checking our paint, so neat paint straight in the colour cup. You're not going to need tons of it, although I will for doing all of these. But the whole point of doing this is to literally see what the join is around the outside, and also to pre-paint the inside of the canopy. Okay, and because it's thick, dry paint, neat, we just cut to air dry it down. You can see exactly what you've got. But if we was to use it red, what will happen is, let's dry that down. What's going to happen is, if it was red in colour, it would be quite translucent, and when you would look through, you'd have your hawk like this, and it wouldn't look right. You would be able to see sort of like a pinky colour because you're over a clear. You might be able to see on this guy here, it's all black on the inside, no matter where you look at it as well. Like the real thing, obviously it's black. This gives us that. So what you've done, you've put that coat of paint down, it shows through, so from the outside, when you're looking through it, it looks like it's black on the inside, although it's not, it's just clear plastic. But also, the major part of doing it this way is to give you a thick metal look to it. Too many times I look at models and people have done great jobs, but they don't ever put black down paint first, or a dark colour, then they come along with blues and greens and things like that, and it's like a translucent colour. It's just a quick tip. The other big thing as well, obviously, is when you look at this, and how well the cameras can actually pick this up, you should end up with, if we just drop this top line just a little bit, what we're looking for is to have no gaps all the way around the outside. Okay, so this one here, as you can see, we haven't got any gaps on this outside, round the front, it's a little bit wet, round the back, and down the other side. That's the whole point to it, because if you did end up and you got a gap, a little split, what you can do is pop in there with a little bit of PVA glue, tiny little bit of filler, fill it, overpaint it, and job done. Because if you get gaps all around it on a closed canopy, it doesn't look very nice at all. Okay, so what I'm going to do is do the same for all of these other ones. I've also popped around on a couple of them. You might have seen this one in the background, it's got a little bit of black paint. What he had was a couple of little tiny blemishes, imperfections, things like that. I wanted to take care of and make sure they're okay. So by putting on hand painted paint, what you can do is put those on, then sand it, and it acts like a micro filler if you want, and goes in there. Or you can just look at it and see that it's all okay. And to be honest, these are all going to have a gloss black paint job right the way over them, to prepare itself for having the red over the top, so it gives a nice deep lustful colour to it and everything else. But as I said, first up, flat black, check all those canopies, make sure they're all good, everything's fine, and then we're going to gloss black them, and then we're going to do the red work, do that, and we can really start pushing on with decaling and bringing them really to life. Okay, so we're going to come back to that a little bit later on, where you can see the next part of that, which will be part 4. To be honest, I'm away this weekend. Monday afternoon, I will probably spend an afternoon decaling all of these, which means we'll really be getting to the end. By the end of next week, we should be done with those. They'll be finished. Star Destroyer will be well on its way as well. So Dave, as I said, he's been off Beswick. He's one of our team members. To be honest, he's been very ill over the last few months. He's had terrible pains in his back and everything else like that, and his neck. So as you can imagine, as we all do, leaning over a bench like that is a bit of a no-no. But he's obviously been pulling his hair out and everything else like that, so he's back with a bang. Now, he can't pronounce it either, but we have got his lead group build coming up. So it is the post-apocalyptic, see, I can't even say it, apocalyptic, that's the one, mayhem vehicle build. But anyway, here's Dave to tell you all about it.
The Doomsday Machine.
The Doomsday Machine? What is that?
A device which will destroy all human and animal life on Earth.
Hey guys, Dave here. I'm back. Took a little bit of a break there. Just wanted to draw your attention to group build we got coming up July 5th, the PAVM group build. I just want to kind of just lay down what we're kind of looking for here. Basically anything post-apocalyptic. Just let your imagination run wild. This is just, I just wanted to do this just so we can get the mojo going, you know, get all those juices going. You can do anything you want. I mean, you could glue a Volkswagen Beetle to a set of tank tracks, I don't care, as long as it's, you know, post-apocalyptic in yes, Phil, it's post-apocalyptic. And just bear in mind, you know, Mad Max, you guys can do movie themes if you want. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Just you can do ships, planes, trains, as long as it's got that feel and that theme to it. If you're going to do a train, you know, glue a machine gun to the front of it or something, you know, just something fun. We're just having fun here, being creative, doing something a little out of the ordinary, kit bashing, you know, really just thinking outside the box and having some fun with it. So I'll just show you what I'm going to do real quick. Phil reviewed this a couple weeks ago. Now, I won't get into at the moment what I'm going to turn this into, but my apologies to the purists out there. It is a pretty nice airplane kit, but when I'm done, it's not going to be a plane. It's going to be something totally different. So, my mojo's going. I was off. I didn't really do much modeling for the last 6 months just due to an injury I had in my neck, and sitting down here and working on stuff, it's been a little bit difficult. Anyways, we're getting back at it. We're slowly getting things back in gear here. Haven't forgot about the Schlingmann. I've done a little bit of stuff here and there, the soldering the wires and stuff like that. It's coming along. I really like it. It's been a lot of fun, but again, you know, it's when you're in pain and stuff, nothing's fun. So, anyways, I really hope that a lot of you will want to join the group build coming up, and we'll have a lot of fun. So, there it is. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
So let's get going. There's no other choice. God willing, we will prevail in peace and freedom from fear, and in true health through the purity and essence of our natural fluids.
Thanks, Dave. Great work as ever, and we hope to get you more back with the builds, and certainly getting some of your ones you've been working on into the featured area onto the main site as well, so everyone can see those. But it's good to have you back, and I will be doing it because I have got my Hilux and a lot of styrene sheet, so I'll be cutting the hell out of it and get it all sorted. So anyway, what we're going to do now is pop back to now part 4 of the Red Arrows build. Okay, so over here, now I've done some of these already, but the principles are all going to be the same. First of all, obviously Red Arrow's red. It's not just red, because obviously that's far too strong. It's got like an orange hue to it. Now, for you members, you'll know we've done this a long time ago. We did the Red Arrow's Hawk, the reaveal 132nd one, and we spoke at great length about how the extra colours, or extra acrylics I should say, colour range seemed to be wrong to me. It seemed to be basically like an orange. We also spoke about after far too many beers one night, I ended up spraying it completely different, and we stuck with it and had no problem. That said, because we're using acrylics range, there's no real acrylic out there to do it. I don't like the Humbrol stuff. Before anyone starts on that one, horrible stuff to spray with. Aqua colour is another option, okay, but again, I've never got on well with it, and to be honest, as you can see, it's a little bit red, right, you can see behind us. I've already done a few in the spray booth, hence it's on the hand. Again, I can't stand this stuff. It just doesn't like me, I think. You know, I'm sure lots of you get on really well with this stuff and airbrush it and all the rest of it. Hand painting it, it's fine. Airbrushing it, it just tends to be patchy, it doesn't like to stick, it tends to separate and everything else like that. So what we've done down here, we've got some colours on the go, and we're slightly at different stages, okay? So what we've got here, we've got some very nice completed Red Arrows Hawks. These are the ones here, really happy with these, okay? All right, so we've got 3 of these on the go. Now, Up here we have them in slightly different stages as I'm going through. If I show you, you can probably see how this one is a lot more orangey than the others. Let me just cover this up before we end up spraying the bait. Okay, as you can see, because what I'm doing is I build it up in layers. I don't just try and go in there and shoot down gloss in one flat bang and away we go. Okay, what I tend to do is I put down a light coat. So I don't know actually how well this is going to line up down here, but you may be able to see the difference. We've got 3 colours on the go here. So actually what you've got is this had one pass. Okay, it's let it dry. It has a second one which is quite a wet one, which we'll show you in a minute. It ends up like this. The third and final coat gets you to this stage. So between all 3 of them, okay, then you get to the colour you want. And it is that thing, because you're going over with a red, the more coats you get it, the deeper, the heavier the colour, and go right the way through. Now originally I was going to do them all completely black, and to be honest they were, but it takes so much paint to do it, and this is the reason why. This is a black one, and you can probably see it's very, very dark compared to the others, and this is purely because you're going over black, so it's giving you that very nice deep black look to it all, but unfortunately it uses so much paint to be able to get there, and to the point where you're actually going through gallons of this stuff just to do it. So you know, 2 of these to a 10mm pot, okay, right the way through. So anyway, what we're going to do now, I'm going to show you on these last 3, and then we got the top up 2 here. Okay, so we just pop them on our little holders just here. Quick tip for you, if you're ever doing these have actually got a point on the end for a reason, these clamps, okay, so these spring loaded ones, because you can put them in and then slot them in things. Okay, so it's absolutely fantastic for doing stuff work like this, because you can come along, drop them in, and away you go. Now, I've got here a red bottle that's basically empty. So what we have is gloss X7, okay, so the X colours means they're gloss, XF means they're flat Britannia, so we're using the XF7. Make sure it's good old shake, especially if it's a gloss, perhaps you don't use it day to day. It takes quite a lot to wake them up, okay? Exactly at the same time, we need to lighten it a little bit, so for our lightening purpose, we're going to be using orange. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put in around about a third into the mix. Love the smell of Britannia, okay? And then we've got the orange. Okay, so in the orange, I'm doing around about 20 drops, okay? So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, probably 20, and then a couple, okay? And then thinning. Now, when you're dealing with glosses, thinning is probably the hardest thing to get right, okay, because unlike normal flat paints where you can just adjust your air pressure, obviously if it's a very wet coat you can lower the air pressure a little bit. With gloss it tends to have to be a certain thickness. If it's too wet it just runs off, okay, and if it's too thick you end up with basically a flat coat because it's having trouble atomizing it, which means it's really, really thick. All right, so what I tend to do is I'm going to do a 50-50 mixed with what we've got in there, which again gives us really 2/3 of a colour cup in here. Top goes on and we shake it up. Now the orange, what that does is lighten red without it going pink, basically. If you use a white with red, obviously it's going to then just go down through the pink shades, and we're not doing the pink arrows here, we're doing the red arrows. But certainly for just using gloss flat red, a gloss red is going to be too strong a red for them. They're not quite that, they're more of that sort of fire red. So by doing that, always use an orange to lighten it, and that works with other colours. Instead of just going in there straight away with a white, if you're trying to bleach something, you'll go in there with a white or a grey to fade it, to make it come out and give it that sort of bleached look. If you're trying to lighten the colour, then obviously look for one that goes with it. So obviously if you're using greens and things like that, you can use a touch of yellow in there, things like that. And then obviously with greys you can use, you know, obviously lightening with whites and things, or lighter shades of grey, rather than, you know, jumping in. But when you're dealing with colours, certainly it does make it a little bit more tricky. Okay, so that's had a good old mix. Then have a look and see how it clings on your jar. Obviously we're looking for it to be pretty wet because we're going to build up our layers. Usual thing, my standard Evo in here, so it is the 0.2 with all the gubbins you'd expect. So I've got my pinch clean needle on the end. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just going to put a little bit of thinners in here because this has been standing. Okay, Remember, little quick tip, don't come in with your brush now and do this if it's dried on the edge of your colour cup, because what you're going to do is have the skin, it's going to go down the business end of your airbrush. This is to purely wake up where the needle area is and to check our flow. So you should be able to pull the trigger and it just dumps that entire colour cup down in there. But if you was to go in there and scrub around now, what's going to happen is it's going to get that skin, it's going to come out, it's going to go into your needle and down that end, and it's going to cause all types of trouble. Now, what we'll do, just get this off. Normally, obviously, what you do at this point is, let's grab this guy, is have your extractors all running and everything else in a well ventilated area. What I'm going to do is just do a little bit, then I'll turn them on and you can then watch me. But obviously they're a little bit noisier, these ones, than my standard booth behind me. So check our flow. Coming through, obviously looking at the colour, you can't tell too much on paper, and obviously you can't tell when you're just putting one down. But when you go over this, you're looking to put it down. So as you see, first one going in, it's looking a little bit pinky, but don't worry about that, it's just because it hasn't built up any layers yet. So you're just putting down a speckly coat right the way over for our first pass. So just make sure you get in everywhere with this, and this is what your gloss coat is going to be able to stick to and bite to. Just make sure you go everywhere, and make sure you do things like leading edges and trailing edges of wings when you're doing it and everything else. So there's our first pass, just like that. Okay, looking quite glossy as you can see already. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just dry this off a little bit. Okay, then we're just going to grab one of our predecessors just here. This has had a coat already. Going to give this our second coat, and hopefully you can see, if I do half, you can see how all of a sudden it goes really, how well the camera can get this, but you might be able to see it's a lot redder on this side than the other. So when you're glossing, remember, nothing too erratic, keep it nice and smooth, keep it nice and wet as you're spraying on and everything else. So this will be its final coat on this one, I think. Okay, just making sure we've got no big lines and areas on this. Again, leading edges, trailing edges of wings, right the way over. Okay, and that's how we go about it. So again, we can stick him up there to dry. Alright, and then we should be able to come back to this guy now. So this had its first one, so we're going to do usual thing. But this time we can take our time with our painting, slowing it down a little bit more, okay? So you can slow the amount of time you're on an area, because you want it to be nice and wet, okay? So we just come over, down the sides. One. Usual, make sure you do leading and trailing edges of wings and the top. Okay. And there we go, that's our second one. Now we'll need a third coat purely because you end up with little patches. So I can see them already. I've got a little bit I need to do, a little bit more on the wingtips. And obviously you might be able to see down in here we've got these the flat actuators, things like that. They're still not painted totally in between, and obviously you can get in there and just do a little bit around the rears, but you will need another coat on there, as we can see. And that's really how we're going to do this. We're going to just go around, do each one, do them up in time as we go right the way through. So reload the colour cup, which is quite easy because we've got a load knocked up now. Pop it in and we can go through it. But first of all, I need to get these extractors on. Okay, so there you go, that gets us to that point. Members, you'll be able to watch this in the full high-res version, because obviously this is the low-res one for YouTube. The high-res one will be up on the main site mid next week. I'll put a dedicated page in the video build area, so if you do want to hold off and wait for the high-res versions, they will be up there. They are going up on the server as they're coming up to the new show, so what I'll do is I'll get them all up onto the actual one. And as I said, I hope to get a dry fit with those probably by next week's news show on a temporary stand, so I can see exactly how they are and how they're going to be and everything else like that. But as I said, thoroughly enjoying it, and it's a great project to be working on. Anyway, the support vehicle SIG finished last week. I know a few of you thought I might do it last week. Can only really do one a week for these reveals because they take quite a bit of time getting all your names in. Great work as ever. We had 22 finished, so not brilliant turnout on it, but certainly the quality of work, as you said, will speak for itself. So anyway, that's it for this week. I'll see you next week. What we're going to do now is leave you with the final reveal video of the support vehicle SIG 2014.